back for another edition. We're starting a little early today because Jeff had requested that, but we're having trouble getting a hold of him, so we're not sure. You might have to listen to us for an hour. We also did a little rebranding. I turned it into the Misfits of Real Estate. I'm not sure if Matt's on board with that or not, but
Hey, Misfits is my favorite band ever, so
nice.
I'm into that.
Cool. So we're now the Misfits of Real Estate. Yep.
So, hey, maybe Jeff will get on today or not. I know that we had some difficulties at the cell phone number for the text reminders and that sort of thing may have been wrong. So, but we always have a ton to talk about in terms of real estate, capital raising, all that stuff. So we'll wait for him. I made a post earlier this week about the importance of making your deposits at a local community bank. What inspired me to do that was I had a conversation with one of my community bank partners. I won't name the bank or anything like that, but I brought a deal to them we were looking pretty hard at to get a term sheet, and they said that we're not lending on commercial real estate anymore for the foreseeable future until we get more deposits, which led me to encouraging people that of the importance of not lending, but depositing your checking, savings accounts, and that relationship with local community banks, because those banks typically by their charter lend your money to support businesses and real estate deals in your very own community. So this is just a public service announcement of, hey, if you got your money at Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, whatever, pull your money out and don't wait to do that. A lot of times people are like, oh, well, I have to have all these auto payments. I got to switch over and that sort of thing. All you got to do is just pull out your last three bank statements, take a yellow highlighter, highlight those auto deduct things that you have, and then just switch them over, because it benefits your community. And I really believe the rising tide raises all ships, because the thing is that these national banks, they take your money. They're like the financial colonizers that, take our money and lend it and invest it and put it to work in bigger cities and outside of our community. So when you deposit locally, you actually support the expanding economic capacity within your local community. So make the switch today, people.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. My only reason for not switching is just the local banks tend to have poor online services as far as, doing all the stuff that we're accustomed to through our bigger bank. We use Citizens, and, we have a number of different accounts. We have escrow accounts. We've got different accounts for different properties and operations and, all the different companies that we run. And it's just kind of a nightmare to have to do that in an archaic online environment of most local banks. So,
yeah, I mean, the thing is that I was with you there probably about 5 years ago, but the local banks have adopted platforms that actually are super easy to use and are modernized, and definitely compete with the likes of national banks. So yeah, I mean, we have the same thing. I have my escrow account, all of our property accounts. I mean, we have a pretty big relationship with Candigo National Bank. Is just one of our bank partners, and it's super easy to run out of there, because their online software is just so much better than it was before.
okay.
So I'm still going to be
working. Look at it.
Yeah, I'm still going to be working on you, Mark, until you make the switch.
Yeah. As long as it does everything that we do now, because the payroll goes through there, and we have check processing, and it took a long time to set it up, and switching over is not going to be painless.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I think Kathy can probably just sense us even talking about it right now, and she's saying no, not doing that.
But that being said, on the subject of financing and that sort of thing, what are you seeing out there on your deals?
The cost of financing is really expensive. I mean, the last time I got a rate, I was like, I'm spending less money with my hard money people. I have good relationships with them, so I get treated pretty fairly. They don't have to order an appraisal. They know I'm a broker, so they trust they say, how much is it worth? I tell them. They give me a pretty good loan to value, and I avoid all those fees, the origination fee, all that stupid stuff. Yeah, I pay a point or two But right now, hard money for me is cheaper than going to the bank, which is pretty crazy.
Cheaper from an interest rate perspective or cheaper from like an annual debt service? Like, okay, it's interest only, so it's cheaper when, than when you're having to
The
amortize
rate,
yeah.
the
Oh, okay.
rate's cheaper. Yeah,
Wow.
right.
So do you think that this is a change coming with hard money lenders, for instance, or they're just like, hey, we just want to keep things the same for the foreseeable future and you know, take the money away from the banks?
Right. Yeah. I mean, none of them have told me they're increasing rates,
Hmm.
and I talk to them pretty frequently. So I think it's going to stay the same. But
Hmm.
I wouldn't blame them if they raise their rates either.
So on the brokerage side of things, I mean, you have agents, you broker some of your own deals. What are you seeing out there in terms of like a sentiment from from the clients you're working with?
There's still a lot of people that want to buy. I mean, they want stuff that's cash flowing. So you're getting worse and worse product, right, for the same money. So there's a lot of kind of tired, beat up rental stock that's being traded. When you
Hmm.
get into the nicer stuff, that's still trading too. I walked that really nice property on Strath Allen, 5 units listed for just under $1 million.
Hmm.
And I knew when the listing agent didn't call me the next day that she took an offer,
Okay.
right? So, and I just kind of coincidentally ended up talking to the owner. He called. He's a really nice guy. He actually called to help one of his employees that is our tenant. And I talked to him for a while, and he was like, "Oh, I just listed this house on Strath Allen." I was like, "Hey, I walked it." So
Hmm.
it was kind of a funny little coincidence. But yeah, I mean, 5 units, $950,000. So, and it traded in 4 days.
Hmm. So did you end up running the numbers on that deal and underwriting it or what?
Oh god, I didn't even bother. I knew it wasn't. I took somebody over that does Airbnb,
Hmm.
and they also want to live like the next purchase that they make. They want to live in it, and they
Yeah.
also want to have some units to offset the rent. So they had been like primarily looking at single families that were
Hmm.
really large, like on East Avenue, where they could have a spot that they use as an Airbnb,
Yeah.
but also like reserve it if they're going to have family in town that they, just more space. And it's really hard to find something that you can kind of still keep your privacy and be in a single family home with a rental unit. So that's why I
Hmm.
said, just come over and look at this one.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, they may regret not pulling the trigger.
Hmm.
But it was the first one that was a multi that they looked at for the same type of scenario. But yeah, no, the numbers, even with Airbnb, were probably still not the best. But,
Hmm.
they're going to live in it. So to them, it was a little different.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose like for those of you who are outside the area, Strath Allen is, I'd say, is a what would you say for the city? Probably like an A area, I would
Oh,
say,
yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Um, and Strath Allen is actually really close to a hotel. The Strath Allen, it's a DoubleTree by Hilton, and there's and it's used a lot for a wedding venue. They have this beautiful rooftop terrace, this like rooftop penthouse where they host weddings there. There's weddings out on the actual front lawn of the hotel that faces East Avenue. I know I've been in a lot of those wedding shots, like behind the altar while I'm walking my dog, and, and baby, I feel so bad.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I think from a location adjacent to there, I think you could definitely capture like a lot of that captive audience from those wedding guests
Oh,
that stay there,
absolutely.
and then
Yeah.
kind of backfill in the rest of the year for people that, it's walking distance to the Memorial Art Gallery. By the way, if you've never
Hmm.
been to the Memorial Art Gallery, people definitely check it out. They have that infinite mirror experiential art exhibit that's over there right now. The George Eastman House, the Strong Museum of Play, and a lot of great amenities to the area. So, that's, one thing is that I'm a recovering Airbnb host. I had one unit that just drove me nuts. I got into it by accident because my in-laws were coming in town at a greater clip. So we didn't want them staying with us. We wanted to have them have their own place. So I converted a one-bedroom apartment to an Airbnb. They furnished it, and I, rented it out the rest of the year in order to give them a free place to stay when they came into town. And it was a tough business. Like,
Yeah.
I had, probably at least 100 residential units on long-term leases. And this one unit seemed to take up like all of my time.
Yeah, the juice was not worth the squeeze.
Hmm. So, have you ever messed with the Airbnb at all, or short-term rentals, or midterm rentals? Tell me about that.
No, my parents did. They bought a house down in the Bahamas after the market crash in '08. So they
Hmm.
bought it directly from the bank, got a pretty good deal. But it was, a foreclosure type sale, so it was pretty trashed by the previous owner. They went through it, fixed it all up, made it nice, furnished it, and for a while they're like, okay, well, when we're not here, we might as well lease it out. And they had people that would like steal their stuff, and
Hmm.
my mom was just so sick of it. She said, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to keep it for ourselves and not have to worry about. Is when you add up, like, they're running the air conditioning 24/7, and all that stuff is expensive. Like when we use it, we can, my dad's always yelling like close the doors and like turns it down and like is responsible. But when somebody's renting your own property, that they don't care. They're just gonna leave the doors open, run the AC, go to the beach with the AC on. And my parents are like, it's definitely not making us money. It's just causing us headache.
Hmm. Yeah. So, do you have a lot of clients that are investors are looking out there for short-term rentals, that type of thing?
It is pretty popular, but I think, at least in our area, there isn't really a management firm that handles it that I
Hmm.
know of anyway. I think there's some smaller mom and pops that
Hmm.
do take on clients, but there's no real like person or company that I can think of that would be able to say, okay, somebody from Florida wants to buy one up here, and now there's a reputable management company that specializes in Airbnb. We don't have that. So while I get a lot of people, I try to educate them that you should underrate it on a term lease.
Hmm.
And I think when they do that and they realize like, okay, maybe this is a little risky. So I'm trying to get people to buy stuff that makes sense from a term perspective versus a short term perspective. So I
Hmm.
really don't, unless I have a client that operates them themselves, then yeah, we can help them find them. But as far as like an investor, when they come in, usually through my education process, they're kind of turned off by doing that model. It's a lot of work, and I really don't have a good referral right now for management. I do have a colleague that's working on building his brand and his business. So if he
Hmm.
steps into that space, it could be a good symbiotic relationship where when I have those people, I have somebody that I trust that I can send them to for management services.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. I mean, if you're looking at a property, yeah, underwrite it as in terms of having long-term leases in place, for a few different reasons. One, there's towns that can basically just do with a stroke of a pen, make short-term rentals illegal in a given location. All right, and throw that business model right out the window.
Yeah.
So that's one reason. The other reason is just from the management fatigue associated with it. I mean, I had one unit and it drove me nuts. With Airbnb and those platforms, they're great because they have an accountability mechanism built into it for the ratings, right? So the gold standard is to become superhost status with Airbnb. That takes a certain amount of bookings, having 5-star reviews, and all that stuff. And you can. And I remember it took me like 8 months to achieve superhost status, and I was ecstatic. And then I had this one lady who was, let's just call her extra, that, you know, for some reason, I don't know, my cleaner didn't refill the salt shaker. And this woman was like apoplectic about, not having salt at the place. And so she gave me like a 2-star review. And then I got knocked off of superhost status. That
Oh,
was the seminal moment when I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
yeah.
Because like the thing is that when it's good, it's good. There was many points in time where I even forgot that I had a guest at my unit. I had my systems and processes in place, but it was just like once in a while, like once every 3 to 6 months, I would have a guest that would ruin my life.
Hmm.
And this was the last lady that ruined my life, and I was just like, no, no more. So then I just rented it out long term. So
Yeah. Did you take the furnishings back out to rent it out term?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was my in-laws furniture, so they basically took it back out. They bought a house coincidentally around the same time, so they just moved their furniture across the street. It was on Rundell Park, which is actually not too far away from Strathallen.
Mhm.
But I mean, from a booking standpoint, we had a 5-night minimum, and we had I think we're probably about like 80, 85% occupancy, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
If we would have done it, to a 3 night minimum, we probably would have even had higher nightly rent, as well as having a higher percentage occupancy as well.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing that's difficult too is that there's still banks that that don't really like short-term rentals.
Right.
So there's a workaround to that. Not sure if most banks are cool with it, but like, for instance, one of my clients, basically I was like, is your wife on the mortgage loan? No. Does your wife have the same last name as you? No. It's like, all right, well, just sign a lease with her, a long-term lease, and then just run it as an Airbnb. Because he
Hmm.
was locked into a hard money loan, and was coming up on term and had to refinance. So that was the way he was able to work around that. Um,
Okay. Is that considered fraud, or is it kind of like a gray area because technically she could be master leasing it and then subletting as an Airbnb herself?
I mean, it comes down to the lease, right? So if you have language in the lease that allows the tenant
Allows that. Yeah.
to sublease, and then that lease is subordinated to the mortgage, it. I'd say I don't know if it would be fraud, but in legal eyes, it probably wouldn't pass the smell test.
Yeah.
With it being a less than arm's length lease,
And
but
what
yeah.
rent would you use? Would you use like a term rent amount that was a lot less than an Airbnb amount, or just who cares? Just put our gross on it.
I think that what I advised them to do was to just put in, fair market rent,
Fair market. Yeah.
for the lease. I mean, when you're going through the appraisal process, anyways, this was a residential property. I think it was like 2 to 3 units. An appraiser's not going to give you some sort of bonus valuation based upon, a unit renting for $5,000 a month, when a long-term lease would be $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Um, they're not even willing to give you that credit on a commercial appraisal either, because they're going to look at rent comps for long-term leases that are in the area, and then they're going to apply that to it. So, just because think you're juicing the net operating income by operating a short-term rental, and you have this like crazy high contract rent on that with some LLC, doesn't mean an appraiser is going to give you credit for it. They're going to pull rent comparables in the area, and they're going to use that in terms of coming up with a projected gross for the property, and that's what the valuation is going to be based upon.
Yeah. What are you and your students seeing in the market? Are you guys still getting stuff under contract or no?
Yeah. I just had a student get a plaza under contract. Super jealous. This was an off-market deal, and I think he's getting it it's a fully leased plaza in a great location, and I think that he's getting it at a let's see, 1, 2. He's getting about a 9.5% cap rate.
Wow.
Plus rents are 30% below market. So the business plan we're going to do on that property is there's some leases that are rolling off within 6 months. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of do a value add lease stagger. I just made that term up right now. Value add lease stagger.
There you go.
What's the acronym for that, Mark? Value add lease stagger. Oh, a
VA
VALS. VALS.
valves.
VALS. So that those tenants that are expiring in 6 months, renew them, bump them up a little bit, renew them for 2 years, and then the leases that they're expiring next year when they come up for renewal, get a little bit more aggressive on those ones, so that you're engineering your value add strategy to not have as much vacancy exposure when you're in the transition of repositioning that property and bringing rents up the market.
Hmm.
Um, so that's a smoking hot deal. That was off market. Most of the deals that I train my students to go after is how to find and source off market deals.
Yeah. So
And
why
then
don't you
from
talk a little bit about that? How did he source that deal? What was his strategy and what ended up bearing the fruit?
This was actually a relationship with another investor. So there's, I guess, I often say there's two channels for off market deals. One is direct to seller. Okay,
Hmm.
so nurture contact a relationship with a property owner of a property you want to buy. typically these people are not motivated. You're not buying properties where there's a little old lady that can't keep up with the house anymore and needs to sell. This is more of a nurturing and relationship building. So the number one objective is to establish contact and then nurture that contact over the period until they're ready to sell. At that point in time, you can deliver a customized disposition strategy for them that's tax advantage to them, that gives them the exit numbers that they want and that sort of thing. But that's a really long life cycle. Those direct to seller
Yeah.
deals, like they're not going to, you're not going to basically have somebody that wants to sell their property in 3 months. Typically not. 99% of the
Right.
time, no. And then the second channel is off market through brokers. All right. So those are more motivated sellers. You have to establish a relationship with, several real estate, commercial real estate brokers. Be very clear on what you're looking for in terms of the property,
Hmm.
down to even what it looks like, product type, location. The more specific, the better, because then when they see that deal and they know, okay, Mark up the graph is looking to buy a 10 to 20,000 square foot strip mall located in these zip codes with a whatever a pitched roof, which you never see in a shopping plaza, but something like that, so that you nurture that contact, and then when those deals do come about, when they had a listing agreement signed, then those brokers typically will shop it around to their contacts first before they put a full blown marketing package behind it.
Yeah.
Commercial brokers typically want to have more control over the transaction process. So they don't want to, basically just sell the property to any Yahoo in town that's not going to be able to perform. And then they end up, losing out on a commission opportunity. And then, sometimes it blows up, they get crap on their face, and then, and then they lose that opportunity. And commercial sales is not like, because I used to be a commercial real estate broker. I still have my license, but I'm not active in the space. But I was maybe doing 2 to 3 commercial deals a year, and that's how I was putting food on my table.
Hmm.
So that's one, that's one channel. The third channel is other investors. Being very clear on what you're looking for with other investors, networking with within organizations like FRIA, Freedom First Real Estate
Hmm.
Investors Association, and other investor trade groups that are in your area, and network with them and being very clear on what you're looking for,
Yeah.
especially if you're in the commercial space. A lot of investors are in the single through 4 family space, and that's how I've gotten some deals. My deal on Monroe and Meggs, which was a 28 unit mixed use deal that I repositioned back several years ago, was a referral from an investor. Shout
Hmm.
out to Ben Antonucci. He was doing small rehabs and flips at the time, and he just didn't. He's like, I don't know. I don't know how to take this thing down. So he thought of me because he knew what I liked to buy. And that's how I got that lead. And that's how this lead came to the student of mine, was through an investor relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really awesome. So if you're not a current member of FRIA, you should definitely sign up by going to our website, the FRIA website, and the membership's pretty affordable, right? What do we have it set at?
It's ridiculous. It's like $169 a year for an individual. I think it's $219 a year for a partnership. So if you have a partner and that sort of thing, I think you can have up to 2 members, be active members in there. And then if you have a business that is complementary to the real estate investing industry, so if you're a painter or a drywaller, or you're an insurance broker and that sort of thing, the membership I think is around $390 a year. And all of those memberships give you access to all of our educational workshops that are throughout the month. Tonight, actually, we have a workshop that Joe LaBarbera and Scott Spear are hosting at Ferrari Pizza Bar in East Rochester, and they're going to be talking about commercial real estate tonight at 6:45. So you get access to that. It's a smaller, more intimate setting, usually between 20 and 30 people. You get investors that have decades and decades of experience, like Scott Spear and Joe LaBarbera,
Mhm.
that freely give their knowledge away. And also, you're in a room with other people that are looking to do the same thing. So that helps raise your thermostat and raise the bar for whatever expectations you have. So it's more an intimate setting. So you get access to all of those. And then also the general meeting, which we have on the second Thursday of every month, is kind of like where everybody gets together. It's usually between 100 to 150 people that are real estate investors. They get together, and I mean, as you know, Mark, I mean, being a solopreneur or owning a real estate business, or owning any business for that matter, it can be a lonely place.
Right.
So this is a great way to network and also not feel alone.
Yeah. I mean, for the cost of admission, you should be able to get, triple that value in just going to one event.
Hmm.
I went to the last one at the pizza bar, and dude, there was definitely more than 30 people there, out of chairs, people standing in the back.
Hmm.
Everybody was asking really great questions, and they crushed it. So, if you
Hmm.
are a newbie in this area, you really should at least come check one of the meetings out, and I'm sure you'll realize real quick that you should be part of the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to the subject of deal sourcing, yeah, through those three channels, definitely is kind of where we're getting deals now. Um, it's like, you're not getting opportunities at every single week or anything like that. This is definitely a slow burn, but if you're buying a larger commercial deal, then you don't have to do many each year.
Right.
You don't have to feel like you're like running on a hamster wheel doing it. So, that's there's deals that are happening. I mean, I've had, let's see, the last student we had, it was an off market deal through a broker, right? I think that the key thing is that this deal was, I think, listed at 5.1 million. It was a 58 unit apartment deal, great location, and I helped them underwrite it. And I was like, dude, I don't think you could pay any more than 3.3 million for this deal.
Hmm.
So he's like, oh my God, I'm not even gonna make an offer. That's ridiculous. I was like, just make the offer, underwrite it, deliver your offer to the broker, explain to him behind your numbers and that sort of thing, and then have them present it. And they made a deal. I think they made a deal like 3.3 million.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to make offers out there. I think that commercial versus the residential space, if you do that like on somebody's house in Brighton or something like that, you could definitely have a lot of butthurt people involved because it's an emotional
Yeah.
process. Commercial is generally more rational. We do it based upon numbers and our return requirements. So don't be afraid to make offers, because you're not going to burn a bridge, especially if you're being intentional in terms of communicating what the reasoning behind your numbers are, right? If you
Yeah.
just throw an offer out there at, yeah, I'm going to pay 3.3 million for it, not a penny more, with no explanation behind it, then, you're not putting yourself in the best position.
Yeah. The 20 plus unit or the 20 minus units, like anything under there, that they're still trying to cling on to these prices. And I haven't seen much flex in that space. So it's good to hear that you've got some negotiating power once you get into the larger multi.
Hmm. Yeah. Everybody's motivated by different things, So this particular deal, the 58 unit deal, the seller was closing on a really large property and needed the capital to get that project going.
Hmm.
And so that was the motivating factor that made that deal. And we weren't all too aware of that motivation. So, and the only way you discover that is by putting together an intelligent offer.
Yeah. I do a lot of cold calling. I try to make it a little warm and have like an excuse to call people.
Hmm.
But I do that a lot. I get pretty good success, but it's not instant. You're not looking for those 3 month closings. You're looking to build relationships and getting to know people. And so now I've got a big Rolodex full of people in the community that own hundreds of units that I can, kind of check in with regularly now that
Hmm.
I've figured out who they are and what they do and how they, because usually when I cold call somebody, if it's somebody that's willing to talk to me a little bit, I'm pretty easy to talk to. I'll
Hmm.
learn a lot about them and their business and what they do, just because people like to talk. So if you're a good listener, they'll tell you a lot of different stuff that you can keep in your notes and keep in your CRM.
Hmm.
And then you just kind of you don't want to blast them with spam and like just repetitively email them and stuff, but you need to know who those people are so you can check in with them periodically. And by doing that, you are inserting yourself into their mind share, right? Anybody can only remember three brokers or three dentists or three auto mechanics. Once you get
Hmm.
outside of three, they can't remember you. So you got to make sure you are one of those three people. So when it does come time to sell, like, oh, I'm going to call Mark. Mark checks in with me every once in a while. He's
Hmm.
a pleasure to speak with, and as I get to know them, I can talk about more than just real estate, right? Because on that first like discovery call, I've learned they've got kids, and their kids like soccer, my kids like soccer, so I've got other commonalities that I can talk to about, and it doesn't just have to be so real estate centric all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that old Dale Carnegie saying is "Be interested to be interesting."
Hmm.
So and the thing is that when you're the one asking questions and taking interest, I mean, you're really the one that's directing the conversation. A lot of people think that by talking, you're the one that has control over the conversation. It's just so not true.
Yeah.
And with myself is like, I don't really like talking about myself. I like to, really, really, I mean, I develop a really intense interest in people.
Hmm.
And I remember a lot of the details too. I have this like kind of this knack to remember weird like just minutia
Hmm.
from conversations I had with people several years ago, and I bring that up like I hadn't talked to somebody in 6 months and they said, oh, we're going, yeah, we're going to the Bahamas in a couple months and blah 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 blah, and we have our boat got wrecked in the last hurricane, so we're going down there to see what we do with that and that sort of thing. So I'll remember those types of things and bring those up and just keeping it conversational because my objective is not to buy your property overnight.
Right.
For me, my objective is if you're going to sell this property at some point in time in the future, one, I want to be atop your mind, but also if you have enough runway to work with a serious buyer, you can engineer a custom disposition strategy on your property that's just way more tax efficient. You can dictate the terms of those things as the owner of the property as to what's most advantageous in the long term to you.
Hmm.
Um, and it just happens a lot more smoothly, and plus you don't have to get your tenants spooked in the process. Like, believe me, I've sold apartment deals before, and every time we have full marketing push behind those deals, it's like tenants start putting their notices to vacating because they think some new landlord's going to come in and kick them out or run the place into the ground and that sort of thing. So definitely there are advantages to selling your property off market, and you have to be aware of that as a potential buyer too,
Yeah.
especially with somebody who's got relationships with their tenants and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So switching gears here a little bit, you and I talk a lot in the green room about marketing and social media and that sort of thing. We have a pretty an obsession with that. So what are you seeing out there in terms of the content that you've been producing and new things that you've learned in the meantime and all that fun stuff?
Oh man, it's such a time commitment, right? So luckily, I was able to hire somebody on payroll to help with the marketing side of things to take some of that off my shoulders. But at the beginning of the year, I joined a mastermind, and they were very diligent about teaching us, hey, we got to be marketing ourselves, and we got to build our build our platform, basically, right? You got to know who your avatar is. You got to speak to your avatar so you can stand out in a crowd.
Hmm.
And it's so much work, and everybody's doing it a little bit differently, and everybody's got an opinion. Okay, so this week now we got to do carousels, and carousels are working on LinkedIn, and it's just like and now that it's been a little bit, I've definitely like, I haven't pumped the brakes, but I've taken my foot off the gas pedal. I'm not
Hmm.
as like crazy, but I got to post every single day. And because I was like using Chat GPT to help, and Mid Journey, and putting tons and tons of time. And I'm not a very good graphic designer or marketing person. So I think having somebody to do that, you got to do what you're good at, right? I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at
Hmm.
educating people. So that's really been my focus, and I'm not really worried as much about how it looks at this point. And I know
Hmm.
that as I grow and I have those other people on my team, they can sort out the mess that I'm making and clean it up and make it look more presentable.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I mean, I have, two, as you know, I've, said before that I like video. Even if it gets less engagement from a likes and commenting standpoint, I just like it because I feel like I'm building a better relationship with the people I'm connected to on the different platforms. So that I've seen it firsthand. Like when I meet somebody face to face for the first time, they already feel like they know me. So we can
Yeah.
really actually get into like, actually, there's not as much social awkwardness when you have high relationship tension, like, oh, what's this guy about? Like, so the people already kind of know what I'm about and what makes me tick. And And so the relationship building is definitely like, it's like kind of like a few steps ahead than when it was a normal, just like kind of like cold relationship meeting one-on-one.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, on the video side of things, like I find the stuff that I get the most engagement from and the most views is through the stuff that I just take on my cell phone. And I try to keep it under a minute. And then I just add captions to it, and which is pretty easy. I use an app called CapCut, which will auto generate the captions and stuff like that. So that's kind of like, just experimenting with those types of things. But actually, yesterday, are you active on Instagram at all, Mark?
No, no.
Okay. So I post to Instagram just like I do to Facebook and LinkedIn, and I found there was this like, hey, this is a new trick to get exposure to people outside of your audience.
Mhm.
And it was typically that Instagram has these things called reels. So any video you post to the Instagram platform is considered a reel.
Mhm.
You have an option to either have it posted on your profile grid or not. Okay.
Okay.
When it's posted on your profile grid, that means when somebody pulls up your profile, they see that video there.
Hmm.
When it's not posted on the profile grid, then it's not there. And what happens is this guy said, like, it has a much higher probability of being on somebody's featured page when they hit that search button on Instagram if they're searching for something specific. And the algorithm already knows that they follow and like a lot of like real estate related content, that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try that. So we did that on Instagram, and this video had three views. And I'm like, and typically I get between like 200 to 400 views.
Hmm.
And I was like, what the hell? Like, this is something new I did. And and basically we're just going to like take it down and then like, repost it,
Right.
to see if we can get better luck with it. So, but yeah, no, it is insane. It definitely takes up a lot of time. I have a marketing and social media person that's on my team. But even the work associated with coming up with the idea for content, for instance, is really difficult. I find that you have to like kind of like time block out and even just have a conversation with somebody. You can have a 1 hour meeting with another investor or somebody that's in your association. If you're not a real estate investor, like whether you're in insurance or even marketing, and just say, hey, let's sit down for an hour together and just talk about, just kind of concepts for content. And then, some of them might start out with big ideas. They have a lot of like moving parts and that sort of thing. Uh, Take that big idea and then break it down to its movable parts in terms of things you can either talk about or write about that will take, less than 1 minute to read.
Yeah.
So, this week I've been talking about, understanding commercial appraisals with my content, and, slick tricks that you can use around commercial appraisals, to understand uh, better. So when you're, doing a value add strategy on a deal and you are planning on pushing the value of the property and refinancing it, your appraisal on your refi is going to be very important to that, because I don't know if you've had low appraisals before, Mark.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Disappointingly, uh,
Hmm.
tearful low appraisals on refinances. And so I forgot where I was going with this, but I took these things and I was like, okay, I'm just going to talk about like the 5 things you need to know about, commercial real estate appraisals. And then I found I was like, well, I can take those 5 things and cut them up into, 5 different pieces of content that, I can get really deep on that one thing with one video,
Hmm.
that's really impactful. So I've been doing that recently.
Nice. How's your engagement going?
Engagement's going decent. I mean, I'm definitely not an influencer or anything like that. I'm just trying to make content that for the audience that I currently have, that give them value.
Hmm.
I only have like 1,600 followers on Instagram. I only have like 2,600 followers on Facebook, and I think like maybe 2,000 followers on LinkedIn. It's not a huge wide audience, but in the business of, using the platform to find deals, for instance, being top of mind with other investors, brokers and property owners. And also on the capital raising side of things is, hey, I'm a person that partners with private passive investors to invest in real estate. I don't need that many people. The
Right.
most amount of people I've ever partnered with on a deal, I think, is probably 4 people,
Hmm.
investment partners. So I don't need a huge audience. So my objective is just to
Get the
try to
right
deliver,
audience.
yeah, try to deliver value to them. Some of the stuff I do is, it's not all of it's pure gold, but you just can't make uh, perfect the enemy of good.
Right. Yeah. You just got to produce, and some will be good, some will be okay, and some stuff you might want to delete later. Right.
Yeah. Feeling cute might delete.
Yeah. Uh,
um, so in your ideation of content, let's say, like what's your process, or do you just kind of like get an idea in your mind and you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna make a note for myself to do something on that?
yeah. I've been kind of sporadic. I really like the mantra of document, don't record.
Hmm.
And so I'm trying to get better at that. It's easy to say, hard to practice.
Hmm.
And really, it's just being willing to whip your camera out at a moment's notice and start documenting,
Hmm.
right? Because I have so many documentable moments that happen each day that could really provide value to people. It's just a matter of actually doing that, and then taking that content and having it chopped up however and fed out to whatever streams. So
Hmm.
that's really what my focus is going to be, versus like trying to figure out what I want to talk about, sit down and talk about it. I waste so much time doing that model. I'll kill a whole day, and I'll realize that like I just wasted. I did not wasted, but I just invested a day in this one piece of content, and I didn't get anything else done that I needed to get off my list. So I really
Hmm.
want to flip the switch and just have it. I don't care what the production is, right? I more care about what the content is. So if I'm doing something cool, grab the camera, get it filmed. For instance, I had a young gentleman reach out to me because I was on the Best Ever podcast. He's still in high school, but he wants to start with his dad, start investing.
Hmm.
And his dad brought him. Like I took him out to dinner or whatever. He could ask me whatever questions he wanted. It would have been a perfect opportunity to just have a camera recording, because I just
Hmm.
gave him so much education in
Hmm.
that 1 hour that I could have chopped that thing up for months worth of content right
Hmm.
there. And I wouldn't even need him in the frame either. I could have just had it on me answering his questions.
Hmm. Yeah. So next time you have a meeting like that, so it's
Yeah.
not awkward and you have a tripod in a restaurant someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it at your office, like, and bring some, coffee and some sandwiches in and that sort of thing. So you have that set up and mic'd up, and
Yep.
yeah, no, that's especially when it's edited for intent. You can get a lot of just like really really great golden nuggets out of that.
Hmm.
And one of the things I've done before, and it's been a while. I need to do this again. I scheduled a session with my videographer and my friend Marty Grisanti and Chris Lawrence. And I was like, hey, let's get together. Our videographer is going to have 3 cameras, going to have us mic'd up, and let's shoot it about real estate, right? And your journey and how you started and your aha moments and that type of thing. And we got so much dynamite content out of that was so like it was just a lot more animated than like the typical type of thing that I do when I'm monologuing, which is
Hmm.
tough.
Yeah.
So we should do that sometime, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that in an hour session, you can probably get a couple months worth of engaging content out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a client coming into town from Florida tomorrow. So, speaking about all this, I should just be bold and tell her I'm going to be documenting some of our conversations.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So, what are they coming into town for?
they're looking for multifamily.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So, updates on your fund. What's the latest and greatest with that?
I'm still back and forth with the attorney, just getting the logistics worked out. So, I had a slew of listings recently, and it's just bogged my plate down. Like I had to put my phone on do not disturb because it hasn't stopped ringing since they all went live.
Hmm.
So not a ton of progress, but hopefully next time you ask me next week, it'll be a little more progress.
So what's the staging of your own like real estate brokerage business? I mean, are you looking to like work your way out of the active involvement with that business? Do you think you'll ever be able to let go
Yeah,
or what?
I think so. I've got one young mentee that's doing really well. He's definitely a sales beast,
Hmm.
and he's spent the last 2 years learning how to write contracts and how to deal with people. And um, I think ultimately he should be able to, because he wants more for his life too. He's on
Hmm.
my team, right? I give him that mentorship to be part of my team. And with it, he doesn't have to worry about where the lead's coming from, and he doesn't
Hmm.
have to worry about a budget or, how we pay for signs or locks or whatever. He just does his job and gets paid.
Hmm.
So my thought is that, and we've had conversations, he's going to want to take the helm on a team. And
Hmm.
rather than me build a team, because I've been there, done that, don't really want to do it again,
Hmm.
let him build the team and we'll just do it together. It's kind of in the same relationship we have now, mentor, mentee, and just kind of teach him how to build a team. That way he can progress and get a little bit, he can start mentoring people and kind of just like doing to other people what I did for him. And he can
Hmm.
just kind of rise up on the brokerage side. And that'll really give me the ability to let go of the reins and
Hmm.
know that my people are going to get serviced. Right. That would be my biggest fear, is like, I don't mind having people service my clients as long as they're really good at their job and they have the capacity to service all these people. So when it rains, it pours, right? I wasn't expecting to list. I think I listed like 7 properties, and I have 3 more to list
Oh, wow.
in the last 24 or 48 hours.
Are you
And
serious? Wow.
yeah, and so it's just been like all the paperwork and just getting the photos and coordinating with tenants and getting your team on board and the marketing. And so, as long as he progresses the way that I hope he does, and he can take the reins and get a team under him, then I should be able to start opening the floodgates for them and say, okay, these are your people now, service them.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the business own like the growing business owner's biggest challenge is, this sort of thing that kind of goes in your mind, right? Is that like if you want doing something done right, do it yourself, right? And that's exactly how my dad, operated, and how I operated for a really long time. And there's still stuff that's on my plate that I'm like, oh God, this is like $15 to $50 an hour tasks.
Right.
I need to be focused on the 500 to $1,000 an hour tasks, or even $10,000 an hour tasks. But it's
Exactly.
difficult to let those things go. And I find the method that works best for myself is, and this is not healthy, but the method that works best for myself is I need to get a new property under contract or get into do some new project that's just like I'm just way over my head, and I'm just like I can't do this. Like literally, I physically cannot do this on my own.
Hmm.
And then building the systems and documenting those systems for the people that we're going to bring on our team to kind of take those things over.
Yeah.
But that like sort of stuff, and that's the reason why I got out of I kind of got out of brokerage, because I was like, yeah, there's like I'm doing a lot of these like $15 to $50 an hour tasks, but also like I'm wasting a lot of potential in terms of the value that that I could create for other people by focusing on these other things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
putting a lockbox on a house, putting a sign in the front yard. Dude, I got a hammer, like a sledgehammer in the trunk of my freaking car, man.
Hmm.
And I go on there, pound the signs in, filling out the listing paperwork, and I saw my job as a real estate agent as like, I was like, all right, client wants to see a house. You schedule an appointment to go see the house. You show up, you open the lockbox, you let them in, you walk them through the place, answer any questions they have, ask if they're interested. Do you want to write an offer? What do you think we should offer? Is much that makes you uncomfortable and add 20% on top of it in this
Right.
market. And then, you go back to the office, you write the offer, you submit, and it's just a lot of this perfunctory task. And I'm just like, dude, like somebody newer can do this stuff and, and add their value there. Like I have, 17 years worth of experience, hard knock experience too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not all sunshine and rainbows, people, that I can, add that value to the world. And that's where I want to, have, focus my energy,
Yeah.
not writing copy for
Right. A
a
listing
Facebook
or something.
post.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah. Luckily, I'm more focused on listings this year. I haven't really worked with many buyers. I'll
Mhm,
still, pick one up here and there. I don't even know why. I should really just be delegating it all out.
mhm,
But I know that my agent's going to hit critical mass, and we're going to need more agents. So I think
mhm,
that's kind of why I'm not just opening the floodgates on him. I don't want to overwhelm him, and although he might be excited at first, he'll probably want to kill himself later.
mhm. Yeah, well, bringing new people on, you don't not only overwhelming them, but you overwhelm yourself too. I mean, training is a huge thing. I mean, and I've I had one agent that I poured into for a year and a half of my life, and then just left.
Hmm.
Um, and
He's the
so,
guy that came to me and then left. I poured a year after you poured a year. He
yeah.
bounced around to like 10 different brokers.
So, exactly. So I'm just like, this is the sort of the business owner's like sort of dilemma, right? Is
Yeah.
that, but it's one of the things like you have to get over, have to get over it. And one of the things I've learned from, shout out to Randy Sperling, is that, he's like, I always overhire. I hire
Hmm.
more people than I think that I need, because one, somebody's always going to get sick. Somebody's going to, get a fight with their girlfriend and, end up quitting, or whatever. And also the business is hopefully going to grow. Right. And somebody need more
Yeah.
human resources to handle that business too. So it's like almost like you have to, hire ahead of time, before you actually need it. And then, that, 50, $60,000 investment, will hopefully add, two to $300,000 to your business, bottom line or top line. And, also you'll be able to focus more on, working on your business rather than working in your business.
Absolutely. That's so key. Working on it, not in it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you should put the feelers out there for potential agents, Mark.
Yeah, yeah. I was right there with you. Like I was pretty much done where I trained a bunch of people, they end up leaving, you give them the world and then they're not grateful for it. And so I was pretty much resigned to the fact that I wasn't even going to try. And
Mhm.
then this gentleman came to me and I basically told him, I was like, dude, I don't really want to do this again. And here's why.
Mhm.
And he was like, I understand, I respect that. If you put this, if you say what you're gonna do, what you say you're gonna do, which is train me, I'm gonna be loyal. So I shook his
Mhm.
hand and I said, all right, this is literally the last time I'm doing it, and now it's on you. And if you
Uh-huh.
come up, like I'll help you build a team, but like you're gonna be the team leader, and that's kind of his goal. So I was right there with you. I was ready to just pack it up and say, you know what, I'm done with agents.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
for
and I think
every I was gonna say for like every 10 agents that I would bring into the organization, you might get lucky and have one that can actually sell. The
mhm.
other nine were just a waste of your time. So that was the other frustrating part.
Yeah, the other frustrating part too is like, a book that was majorly impactful in my life was, Extreme Ownership by, Jocko Willink.
Okay.
And basically the premise of the book is that when you're the leader, um, everything is your fault, right?
Hmm.
So, um, and I think that I've come to the realization that I'm really not a I'm really not a leader. I'm a salesperson, and I need to give the leadership role to other people, because with me, when somebody asks me for help, I'll willingly give it and give it 100, over 100% to them.
Hmm.
But the sort of the leadership in terms of like checking in and, how are you doing? And sort of moderating your style based upon the individual personality of that person on your team. Um, I'm just not, I'm just not that great at those things. Um, I'm the sort
I
of
think you
thing
get
like,
better over time, though. I don't think anybody's necessarily good at it out of the gate. It's not really a natural skill, is it?
yeah, but it's tough for me to be the bug. Um, but kind of like, the sort of nudging people and bugging people. I have this sort of personality defect where, I project myself and my style in terms of what I expect other people to be like, which is more, I hate to use the word entrepreneurial, but I'll use the word entrepreneurial. And take the initiative. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And not everybody operates that way.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I have a trouble with in terms of like that type of thing.
Yeah, I've found that like being the bug doesn't really work anyway. So I don't subscribe to that philosophy of motivating people. It's more about having them want to do it. And so, what
Mhm.
can you do that's going to put them in a position where they feel good about what they're doing and they legitimately want to succeed? They want to do better. They want to go faster, whatever it is, whatever the metric that you're trying to improve upon is.
Mhm.
You get way better results with, building them up than tearing them down.
Mhm. Yeah, on the subject of being a bug, right? I mean, an example here is I'm on the board of directors for NYSCAR, the New York State Commercial Association of Realtors, and um, and as of right now, the board is comprised of all males. Okay, and so we have a absolutely invaluable part of our team, Caroline Rowland, who's been the sort of the administrator of the chapter for several years, and she's the bug and really really keeps things going with all of us in terms of what we needed to do and that sort of thing. And all of us are sort of like solo, kind of solopreneurs. We're all broke, we're all commercial real estate brokers, so we don't really have a boss and that type of thing. So that element is definitely is really important. And the other thing too is just in terms of like I'm horrible at building culture. If you look at, you know, you have a green screen behind me right now. This is one of my offices. There's nothing on the walls. There's like no decorations. The last time I had like a employee function, like, that type of thing in terms of like team building was like never. I think we went out to radio social like, once. All right. And for like a kind of a company get together and that sort of thing. I'm just horrible at those things. So like, really what we need, I think, is that person that can help us like, build that culture and kind of be like I don't know. I don't mean to be sexist, but to be kind of like the mother of the
Yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
to help us along that and be like, hey, we should do we should do this. This is my idea for, for that, like for that. And, kind of like push the envelope on those things, like where, I'm just like, you know, I need to fill up the calendar with meetings and, and do this and this. And I just get so like, with my blinders on and those other things that are outside of that are so important. For instance, like Buckingham Properties is a organization I think that has a great culture. They're a developer and, property management company. They have a really, really great culture and they see it on their social media. That it's like, hashtag buck prop. And every Friday, I think they have like a company happy hour at like, some location, like a bar or something like that from from 4 o'clock on. And if you can make it, you make it. And if you can't, you can't. So, having that person that kind of create that sort of culture for us and my organization is something that we've been lacking on because I'm just not the one to do it. I know it's important, but I just have not been able to figure out how to do that.
Well, and plus it's tough when it's a small group too. I mean, Buckingham has scale, right? So they can have a happy hour and they'll probably get a handful of people that show up on any given Friday. Like I'm so small that if I were to have that, I'd probably be standing there like, where is everybody?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I think that we have I think we have like five people on our team. So yeah, no, it's tough, but there's got to be a way to create. I mean, you can create a culture between two people. All right. So
Mhm.
as long as you have more than one person, you can create a culture.
Yeah.
So I think that's an opportunity for somebody like a cultural consultant
Yeah.
for
For
companies.
companies.
Three C's, cultural, yeah, cultural consultant for companies. There's gonna be
That's
somebody's LinkedIn tag that's gonna be that.
yeah. Yeah.
So how do you want to wrap it up, man?
I don't know. No, it's 2:29. Well, hopefully we'll see the locals at the free event if they come. That'd be great. We want to get our membership up. I think
Mhm.
some of the marketing materials that we just put together is actually a little outdated. When I was reading, how many people you said were coming to the events, I
Mhm.
think it's increased. Like the last meeting at Eagleville was freaking packed. So I don't know if anybody counted how many people there were, but it seemed to
Yeah,
me
there was
like,
like 80, 88 people that signed in. I think there was a few
okay,
people that didn't. So about 90. The month before that, I think it was like 120, 130 people.
nice.
But yeah, that's a good, good room for us to work to work into. But yeah, so we'll have to circle back with Jeff Cook and get him on the show. Because of the technical difficulties and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
because he's an absolute, I mean, he's an absolute beast.
Boss.
Um,
Yeah. Cool. Well, all right. We will see everybody here at our normal time, 2 o'clock, Misfits of Real Estate on LinkedIn Live or wherever you're getting the stream. All right.